welcome back. We're going to talk about example 4, but first we're going to talk about a few different concepts first. So first we need to remember, like when we were dealing with the truth value, last example, that if a hypothesis is false, the conditional statement is true. Okay, and I know that's a little weird, but we need to remember that if a hypothesis is false, the conditional statement is true, regardless of the truth value of the conclusion. So at the end of the day, if that hypothesis is false, who cares what the truth value of the conclusion is? Because it doesn't matter. It's going to be true. All right. Negation. Negation is negation of a statement P. Okay, negation of statement P is not P. Okay, that's what negation means. A negation of statement P is not P. And it's written with these symbols like that. That little wavy thing, P. The negation of a true statement is false. And the negation of a false statement is true. Okay, let's read that again. The negation of a true statement is false. All right. And the negation of a false statement is true. Okay. All right, so that is what negation is. Now we're going to talk about these 4 different vocabulary terms. The first is conditional statement. You know that. If P, then Q. And we're really looking at the order of P and Q. Okay, so that's that first conditional statement. The first conditional statement is if P, then Q, and then it has these symbols, P to Q, like that. Okay, we've already went over that one. The next is the converse. And I really like looking at the symbols because it's just easy to tell. So conditional statement is P to Q, but the converse is Q to P. They flip the order. And then it's if Q, then P. Followed by the inverse, which I like to look at the symbols, and that's a negation. So it's not P. If not P, then not Q. So if not P, then not Q. And then finally, the contrapositive, which if you look at the symbols, it has that negation again, but now the Q and the P, the conclusion and the hypothesis, switch spots. And how you would say it is, if not Q, then not P. Okay? So all of this right here is really, really super important that you put on a flashcard. You're going to have to do this on a quiz and a test. So it's really important that you memorize these symbols and what symbols go with what vocabulary. Really important. Okay, because if you can remember the symbols with the vocabulary, then you'll be able to write down all the statements that you're going to have to write down. Okay, let's look at a problem and see what this looks like. So here we have example 4, and what we need to do is first we need to write the converse, inverse, and contrapositive of the conditional statement. So they're giving us the conditional statement, and from that conditional statement we have to write the converse, inverse, and contrapositive. And then we need to use the science fact to find the truth value of each. So we're going to use this science fact to find the truth value of each of those statements. And remember, for the truth value to be, the only way it's false, remember, is if the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is false. Now, this is going to get a little confusing because what we're going to be doing is flip-flopping the hypothesis and conclusion because of all the, you know, the conditional is P to Q, right? This is Q to P. This is not P, then not Q, and then this is not Q, then not P. But once we write it down, what we're going to do is we're almost going to look at it as a conditional and then examine the truth value from that. I think it's going to be easier once we just do it and then get through it and then go to the end and then we talk about this, okay? So we're just going to go ahead and get started. So we'll come back to this truth value, but for the truth value, we're going to use this science fact right here. So first we have to write the converse, inverse, and contrapositive. So what we know is we know that this is the conditional, right? So the conditional is always P to Q, right? If P, then Q. So if an animal is an adult insect, then it has 6 legs. Okay, so that is the conditional. That's what we're going to be using. What I like to do is whenever I'm talking about the converse, inverse, and contrapositive is I like to write those symbols right next to it so I remember what I'm supposed to do. So conditional, this is the conditional statement. It's right here. And there's the symbols P to Q. The converse, remember they just flip. Q to P. And then inverse, it goes back to the same with P to Q, but now we got the negation. So if not P, then not Q. And lastly, contrapositive is like the grand finale. We got the negations and it's flipped. So if not Q, then not P. All right. So that just seeing these symbols helps me write it when I need to write it, write all these out. Okay, so here we have it. So it says if an animal is an insect, then it has 6 legs. So from this conditional, we need to determine what is the hypothesis and what is the conclusion. So I always like to find those key words. So here we have the word if, right? And then we have the word then. So that means an animal is an adult insect. That is after the word if, so that's our hypothesis. So let's go ahead and write that in. An animal is an adult insect. And then after the word then would be our conclusion. It says, it has 6 legs. So we need to ask ourselves, well, what is it? Well, if an animal is an adult insect, then it has 6 legs. All right. So for the conclusion, we will write it has 6 legs. If an animal is an adult insect, then it has 6 legs. So that means the it is referring to the animal. The animal has 6 legs. So it would be an animal has 6 legs. I'm sorry that took me so long to write. I was trying to figure out what it was. Was it an animal or was it an adult insect? So I kept going back and forth in my brain, but it's an animal. It's saying that that animal has 6 legs. An animal is an adult insect. then it has 6 legs. So if it's an insect, then that animal has 6 legs. An animal has 6 legs. Okay, so now that we have our hypothesis and conclusion written down, we can go ahead and write the converse. So the converse is just right here. If conclusion, or if Q, then P. So there's our Q. So we're going to write if an animal has 6 legs, then we write the hypothesis. Then it is an adult insect. All right, that's the converse. Let's go ahead and write the inverse. Okay, let's write the inverse. I'm going to write it in a different color. Inverse. Okay, so that's where we put in the negations, right? So we go back to, it's if P, so we use the hypothesis. So if an animal is not an adult insect, then it does not have 6 legs. All right, so that would be the inverse, and then we do the contrapositive, which would be the negation of the conclusion first. So if an animal does not have 6 legs, then it is not, okay, because we're doing the negation of the hypothesis of P, is not an adult insect. All right, there we go. So we had the conditional here, and then from that conditional we defined what the hypothesis and the conclusion were. And from there we wrote the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive. It's always helpful to write those symbols and then go ahead and write them all out. But if we go up here, we're not done. Now we need to use the science fact to find the truth value of each. And remember, whenever we're talking about the truth value, the only time it's false is when the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is false. So we're going to go ahead and find the truth value of each. So let's first look at, okay, the science fact. It says adult insects have 6 legs. All right. No other animals have 6 legs. Okay, so those are the 2 facts that they give us. All right. So let's go ahead and look at the truth value. So it says, if an animal is an adult insect, then it has 6 legs. Okay, so what is the truth value of the hypothesis? Okay, so the hypothesis is if we have an animal that's an adult insect, okay, and that is true. So if this is true, what about the conclusion? So if the animal that we have, if that's true and it is an adult insect, what about then it has 6 legs? Well, then that would be true because it says adult insects have 6 legs. So I'd say that the conclusion would be true, which means the truth value for this one, true and true, that's a true. So truth value is true. So the truth value for the conditional value, the truth value for the conditional is true. So true conditional. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the converse. Now, I know that we flip-flop the hypothesis and the conclusion, but when we're talking about truth value, we're going to look at that if and then, and we're going to, for the sake of truth value, we're going to call this our P and this our Q. Okay, so for the truth value to be false, the P would have to be true. This P would have to be true, and this Q would have to be false. And I know that they're flip-flop, right? But it's like we're ignoring this and just looking at this as if it was a conditional statement. Like we know it's a converse and it's not this conditional, but when we're talking about truth value, we just want to look at it as if it's just a regular conditional statement, and then this is going to be the P and that's going to be the Q. Okay? So if an animal has 6 legs, okay, so if that is true, right, so what I'm going to say is if P is true, and we have an animal that's 6 legs, then it is an adult insect. So let's look up here. An animal is an adult insect. If an animal has 6 legs, an animal is an adult insect. So it says no other animals have 6 legs. So if there's an animal that we have that happens to have 6 legs, then an animal is an adult insect. Then yeah, then that would be true. So I would say that the truth value here would be true. Okay. Now let's look at the inverse. And like I said, we're just going to look at, we know it's the inverse and we know stuff's all swapped, but we're just going to look at this as if it was a normal conditional statement with our if and our then. And this would be P and this would be Q. So it says if an animal, why did I write that? Okay, if an animal is not an adult insect, okay, so we have something that's not an adult insect. So let's see, if that was true, okay, let's say I had a dog. That's an animal that's not an adult insect. Then an animal does not have 6 legs. Okay, so yeah, dogs don't have 6 legs. So that would make, if it was a dog, that would be true. If we were talking about a dog, what would there be something that would make that true? So an animal is not an adult insect, like an elephant or like something in the ocean, like a seahorse, then it does not have 6 legs. It says no other animals have 6 legs. Adult insects have 6 legs. So to me, this is the only thing that has 6 legs. Legs is an adult animal. So if it is not an adult insect, then it does not have 6 legs. Yeah, because the only thing that would have 6 legs would be insect. Yeah, so we're trying to think up a counterexample for this, something that would make this false, but I can't really think of a counterexample. So the truth value for this one would also be true because the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is true. So let's look at the contrapositive. If an animal does not have 6 legs, so something that doesn't have, okay, remember we are looking at this just like a regular conditional, even though we know it's a contrapositive. Okay, so this would be our P and this is our Q. If an animal does not have 6 legs, okay, so it's something, oh, it's a dog. A dog doesn't have 6 legs, okay? Then it is not, then the animal is not an adult insect. Well, yeah, this is true. A dog is not an adult insect, so that would be true. If an animal does not have 6 legs, so an octopus, it has 8, then it is not an adult insect. Yeah, that's true again. So I can't really think of a counterexample that would make that false. So the truth value here is true. All right, there you go. Let's go ahead and look at one more example together. All right, so this says, write the converse, inverse, and contrapositive of the conditional statement. If an animal is a cat, then it has 4 paws. Then find the truth value of each. Okay, so first what we have to do is we have to figure out what that hypothesis and conclusion is. So to do that, we look at the if and the then, and therefore we know that this is the P and this is the Q. Okay? So, and remember, when we write the hypothesis, we don't include the word if or then. It's just an animal is a cat. Then it has 4 paws, and that would be an animal has 4 paws. Okay, so we have figured out what the hypothesis and the conclusion are. Now we just need to write the converse, inverse, and contrapositive. So what I want to do first is just go ahead and write that truth value of each. So remember the conditional right here, the truth value is P to Q. The converse is Q to P. The inverse is back to P to Q, but now it's negated. Negated P and negated Q. And then the last one is the grand finale. It's the negation of Q goes to the negation of P. They're negated and flipped. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and write that converse. It says we're going Q to P. So this is, we're going to say if an animal has 4 paws, then it is a cat. All right, great. Now let's write the inverse. It's going to go back to P to Q, but now we do the negation. If an animal is not a cat, then, and then we do the negation here, then it does not have 4 paws. All right, that's the inverse. And then finally, the grand finale, the contrapositive. Okay, so we do the negation, but we start with Q. If an animal does not have 4 paws, then it is not a cat. All right, so we have written down the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive. Now we need to find the truth value of each. And remember, the truth value, that is when the false. The truth value, remember, it's only false. Only false. Wait, I should keep writing capital letters. I don't know why I changed to a lowercase. So it's only false when the P is true and the Q is false. Okay, that's the only time it's false. So let's go ahead and look at these. So remember, we know that these symbols are flipped, but we're really only looking at this as if it was just a regular conditional when we're talking about truth value. So we're going to find those keywords if and then, And so that means that this is our P and this is our Q. It says an animal has 4 paws. So what's an animal that has 4 paws? You know, okay, so if we have an animal that has 4 paws, okay, that's what we have. So let's say that that is true. We have an animal that has 4 paws. Then it is a cat. Okay, well, if we have an animal that has 4 paws, it can be a cat, but is there a counter example that would show it could have something, it could be something else? If an animal has 4 paws, then it is a cat. Well, dogs have 4 paws. Like, what if we were talking about dogs? It would be an animal that has 4 paws, but it is not a cat. So it could be false. And then the counter example would be an animal being a dog. Okay, so this would be truth value. Would be false. All right. Good. Okay, so there was something I was going to say, but then I forgot. Okay, well, we'll just move on. Maybe I'll remember. Okay, the next truth value we're going to look at. Oh, I remember now. Remember, it's only false when the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is false, which is what we have. So let's look at the next one. Inverse. If an animal is not a cat, then it does not have 4 paws. So remember, we're looking at truth values, so we're going to find the if and the then, which means that this is our P and this is our Q, because we're just thinking about it as a regular I don't know, a regular conditional statement. Okay, so the first thing is our hypothesis, and it says an animal is not a cat. Okay, what's an animal that is not a cat? I'm going to think about a horse. Okay, a horse. So if an animal is not a cat, like a horse, then it does not have 4 paws. So this would be true. And the conclusion, horses don't have 4 paws. They have 4 hooves, so they don't have 4 paws. So then that would make this true. So I would say that the truth value is true. But can we think of a counter example? An animal that's not a cat that would have 4 paws. What would that be? What about dogs? Okay, so if we look at the hypothesis, and an animal is not a cat. Okay, a dog is not a cat, so that's true. Then we go to the conclusion, then it does not have 4 paws. It does not, so that means that if an animal is not a cat, the dog does not have 4 paws, but the dog does have 4 paws. So that means that this would be false. And this would mean that the truth value would be false, because the only time it's false is when the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is false. So we can say that the truth value is false. And the counterexample is a dog, is an animal is a dog. If an animal is a dog. All right, so that's that. Truth value is false on that one. Okay, this last one, the contrapositive. All right, we're going to look at the truth value. So first, remember, we're just looking at this as a regular conditional. So we have, I'm going to circle the keywords if and then, which means after if is going to be my hypothesis and after then is going to be my conclusion. So it says an animal does not have 4 paws. So let's think about an animal that does not have 4 paws. Okay, a horse. Why not? A horse. So I'm thinking about a horse. So that's something that does not have 4 paws. If an animal does not have 4 paws, horses have 4 hooves. They don't have 4 paws. So if an animal does not have 4 paws, okay, horses don't have 4 paws. So that would be true. Then it is not a cat. Well, yeah, a horse is not a cat. So I would say that's true. If an animal does not have 4 paws. So we want to think about a counterexample for this. So if an animal does not have 4 paws, then it is not a cat. Then it is not a cat. Oh, then it is not a cat. Right, the horse is not a cat, so that's true. Okay, so we're thinking of counterexamples. What would be something that does not have 4 paws, but is a cat? Can you think of anything that doesn't have 4 paws that is a cat? Because if it is not a cat, the false would be that it is a cat. Something that has 4 paws that is a cat. Well, all cats have 4 paws, so I can't think of a counterexample. So with that, I would say that this truth value is true. You know what? I think we forgot to do the truth value of the conditional statement. Okay, so let's do this last conditional statement. It says, if an animal is a cat, then it has 4 paws. So for that P to be true, we have an animal that is a cat. So we're talking about a cat. That's true. Then it has 4 paws. And yes, cats have 4 paws. So I would say that's true. If an animal is a cat, would there be any time it didn't have 4 paws? And I think that we should just talk in the general sense and not in the, oh, what if it lost one of its legs, or what if it came out deformed, or something like that. Let's just stay with the, you know, the normal expected thing. So if an animal is a cat, that's true. Then it has 4 paws. That would be true. So I would say that this truth value is true. I can't think of a counterexample. Oh, that's not how you spell truth. Truth value is true. So there, that's what you're gonna have to do for your homework. Okay, you're gonna have to write the hypothesis and the conclusion, the converse, the inverse, the contrapositive, the truth value, and if it's false, say the counterexample why. All right, well, that's it for example 4. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.